they said because he's Jewish, he cannot enter that area and that they won't issue him a wristband.
So that wasn't a university thing. That's probably the protesters that are out there.
Right. So are the protesters allowed to not allow a student who pays tuition access to their class in the library?
No, they're not allowed, but unfortunately they have kind of taken over that little area right there. But is there any other entrance that your son can enter through?
No, they are barricading every area for him to get into. And you know, with all due respect, why is that even tolerated? Like, why should a Jewish kid have to go to another entrance?
It's not, I don't know if I'm going to say it's tolerated, but unfortunately the police are not intervening with that right now. And this is coming from the university, so if you had any questions or concern, you would take it with the university itself.
The Talking Points memo this evening is about the anti-Israel demonstrations on some college campuses. We're going to advance the story tonight for you. I know you've heard a lot about it. So last night, police officers in riot gear entered Columbia University's main campus in New York City and cleared Hamilton Hall, named after Alexander, of a group who had broken in, occupied it the night before. That happened about 9 p.m. Fox News took it live. So a lot of you know what happened. The cops cleared the hall in less than 2 hours. Nobody was hurt. Great job by the NYPD as usual. And now the encampments, all the tents paid for by outside agitators, have been removed from Columbia as well. So 109 were arrested. It'd be interesting to know how many of those are students, because there has been a flood of anarchists, Antifa, you know them, coming into these colleges. I'd love to know the delineation of the arrests, and we will try to get it for you tomorrow. Cops are pretty good with us in New York. So I want to know how many of the 109 were students and how many agitators. Very simple. I'm a simple man. Okay. So the police go, hey, you know, we're going to charge him with all kinds of stuff. And they're in a lot of trouble. They're going to be charged with violations of privacy and destruction of property and all of this stuff. But none of them, I believe, will be prosecuted by Alvin Bragg, the DA of Manhattan. They'll be arrested, they'll be booked, but in the long run, all the charges will be dropped. We're going to monitor that. I may be wrong, maybe a few, but remember the George Floyd riots, less than 5% of the violent rioters and looters were prosecuted. That's why all this is happening, because they know, the anarchists know, you get away with it. And if anybody's expelled in Columbia, I'll be surprised. So on the other side of the country, UCLA, they had a problem last night as well. Counter demonstrators showed up there, and they got in a fight with the anti-Israel demonstrators. Violence, but no arrest. Cops, I understand, didn't do anything. They let the violence unfold. They let the people slug it out. I wasn't there. This is a secondhand report I'm giving you now. Can't vouch for it. That's what I was told. Could be wrong. But no arrests. But again, even if they were arrested, they're not going to get prosecuted in LA or New York or San Francisco or Chicago or Baltimore or St. Louis, on and on and on and on. That's why this is happening. All right, here are the worst colleges for the demonstrations: UCLA, Columbia, University of Texas, Tulane, Yale, USC, Southern California, Northeastern, George Washington, Loyola, New Orleans, MIT, Emerson, Boston, University of Mary Washington, Fredericksburg, Virginia, never even heard of that, Portland State, Arizona State, University of Indiana, Washington University in St. Louis. They're the hotbeds. All of those schools are run by leftists. There's one thing they have in common. So the Columbia president, Minu Shufik. Put her picture up. There's me, Noah. How you doing, Nima? Yeah? All right, she is the reason why all of this chaos broke out of Columbia, because at the University of Florida, the Gators, Gainesville, Ben Sass, former senator, I believe from Nebraska, he's a president of the university. And he said, if you do this, you're expelled. So all of a sudden, none of the kids did it. It's hard. It's not hard. All right, according, and we reported this yesterday, Harvard Harris poll, 80% of Americans support Israel in the conflict against Hamas. That doesn't mean that 80% of Americans believe everything that Netanyahu's government is doing is correct. No, I don't believe that everything that Netanyahu's government is doing is correct. But I'm not there. So I refrain. All right? I'm again, secondhand information is not, I can't base stuff on that. But I think the Netanyahu government could play it a little bit differently. However, 80%. So that means that these college protests aren't organic, as they sound like Vietnam. But one of the big factors in this is the behind-the-scenes groups. So I wrote a column, The Treachery Behind the Protests, BillO'Reilly.com. A lot of you have read it. I named the three groups that are behind this. Very surprised, George Soros associated with one of them, pumping big money in. Oh, that's a shock. He's Jewish, Soros. But he's never, ever been a friend to Israel. And also, the situation with the ignorance that I'm going to get to in the final thought of this program tonight on the part of the younger people is staggering. Okay? And that's a memo. Finally, Joe Biden has reacted after I shamed him, and others did as well, earlier this week. And he's issued a statement. Here it is. President Biden has stood against repugnant anti-Semitic smears and violent rhetoric his entire life. Condemns the use of the term intifada, as he has the other tragic and dangerous hate speech displayed in recent days. President Biden respects the right of free expression, but protests must be peaceful and lawful, unquote. All right, it took him 13 days to put out that. 13 days. Now, the first 7, he didn't know what was happening. Nah, all right. I'm going to stow the cheap shots for tonight. Media mostly sympathetic to the protesters because it's run by leftists. All right, here's CNN. Go.
Well, most of the faculty and I think the student body think that what's gone wrong is calling in the police. That the protest was calm, well organized, not violent. There was little, if any, intimidation of anyone. And there are people who don't agree with the protesters who absolutely don't agree with bringing in the police.
All right, he's a loon. The guy's name is Bruce Robbins, teaches at Columbia. And then there's the Democratic Party, which the progressive base despises Israel, and the party is afraid of the progressive base. Roll it.
We should remember that young people so often are the conscience of this country. And just as people protested at the University of Texas at Austin during the Vietnam War or against the Iraq War, it's important to hear these young people's voices and not be sending riot police with shields and weapons to treat them as enemies.
That was Congressman Greg Cesar from Texas, a Democrat. So this issue is not going to help Biden. It's going to go away. We had a discussion on a Hannity radio program today, and I said, this is going away pretty soon. As soon as school is out, protesters are going to go to the beach or wherever they go. But people remember. They'll remember another weak leadership demonstration from Joe Biden. Joining us now from North Carolina is Bernie Goldberg. He's been following this on his website, bernardgoldberg.com. He's got some very provocative opinions on it. I think it's safe to say that Bernie's emotionally involved here, but I will let him define why he feels so strongly about these protests. All right, go.
Look, I'm a free speech guy. I believe in speech that I may not like, that you may not like, Bill, that the good people watching us may not like. I think people have a right to speak. But college campuses are communities, and communities have a right to set their own rules. So intimidating speech is not protected. Threatening speech is not protected. And I have what I think anyway, is an easy comparison. If these demonstrators, instead of saying to Jews, go back to Poland, were saying to black students, go back to Africa, how long would college presidents put up with that? If they were intimidating gay students, trans students, Asian students, Latino students instead of Jewish students, if they were threatening them instead of threatening Jews, how long would that last? Why is it okay when Jews are in the crosshairs, but it's not okay when anybody else is?
I can't answer that question. I want to know if you believe these school protesters, not the outside agitators, but the kids, are anti-Semitic. Do you think they hate Jews? They hate you?
Most of them, I'd give them the benefit of the doubt. But if you're in a group of students and some of them are threatening any students, in this case Jewish students, then you can't be part of that group anymore, or you have to kick out the people who are doing those things. I'm not trying to make a statement that this is a widely a big problem in the demonstrators, among the demonstrators. But if it's a problem at all, then it's a problem.
Okay, so you say that even if you're not an anti-Semite, if you're in a group that's holding up a sign that says Intifada, which is uprising to just destroy Israel, that you either get out of the group or you have to take the tag of anti-Semitism. Do I have that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Look, here's what I'm saying. Let's go back a little bit to the 1960s, to the great civil rights demonstrations, and I'll get to your point in a second. When Martin Luther King marched, he didn't wear a mask. His followers didn't break into buildings and destroy anything. They didn't demand amnesty. They were grown-ups who said, we broke the law and we'll pay for our civil disobedience. They didn't whine about it. These people who are demonstrating now, a lot of them, not all of them, Bill, but a lot of them, are children who wear masks, who chant things like Intifada and From the River to the Sea. They go on Amazon and buy keffiyehs, the Palestinian scarf, so that they could look and sound like Hamas. As a matter of fact, I think Hamas ought to send them fruit baskets and thank you notes, because they're saying and doing the things that Hamas likes. And if they're a minority, they're giving a bad name to everybody else.
All right, I can't argue with any of that. So I want everybody to go to bernardgoldberg.com. Every day, Goldberg bloviates, like me, your humble correspondent, on his website. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of counter opinion flows. So it's a very good website to visit, bernardgoldberg.com. All right,
Can I say one more thing very quickly, Bill?
Yep.
Something that you wrote about and I wrote about. The left, progressives on the left, correctly condemn anti-Semitism, which I prefer to call Jew-hating, when it comes from the right, when it comes from neo-Nazis who carry tiki torches in Charlottesville. You wrote about this. And they have every right to condemn them, and they're right in condemning them. But when the anti-Semitism comes from the progressive left, when it comes from some of the demonstrators on the college campuses who are in fact anti-Jewish, then you don't hear as much criticism of it. They either downplay it or they flat out ignore it. So I'm wondering again, why is that? Why do they have 20/20 eyesight when the anti-Semitism, the Jew-hating, comes from the right, but not so much criticism when it comes from their side of the aisle?
Because they're dishonest. That's it. Bernie Goldberg, everybody, give him a hand, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you for coming on.